This episode is brought to you by The Good Storyteller.
Welcome to Write Her Club, the podcast where we bring your favourite female and NB writers and quiz them all about things writing. Today, I am with the wonderful historian and birder, Lindsey Byrd.
My name is Lindsey Byrd. I'm she, her, and I can be found on Instagram at the Lindsey Byrd, and all the various iterations of social media usually follow that same format. I'm also more active on Tumblr, to be honest, although I don't always post.
Tumblr used to be very big back in the day.
You know, for those of us who never left, it's still quite big.
The true ones, the ones who stayed. Listeners, remember that if you're a writer, you can win £100. Give us a follow, tag a friend, and comment what story you're working on or reading. We will have 2 lucky winners. First winner should be announced on the 5th episode of the podcast. Now, Lindsey, we will start with a very small, short game that I called Birdle. So the way it works is I'm going to introduce you to a sound of a bird that is usually iconic with literature. If you can't figure out what the bird is, I will give you a literary hint of what association the bird might have with literature. And if we still can't figure out, I will just give you a fun fact and the answer. How does that sound?
When I said I was a birder, I should have prefaced that I kind of just enjoy going out and taking pictures of birds, and I'm terrible with bird sounds.
Oh, that is perfect, actually. Right, let's start with the first bird noise, okay? Could you hear that?
The one that sounded like a phone beep?
Indeed.
And it has to do with literature.
Yes.
No idea.
Okay, would you like a hint?
Sure.
This bird is often associated with an American poet whose last name rhymes with toe.
It's The Raven?
Yes, The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Correct.
But that's not a usual raven sound.
No, but they make 76 sounds. I've researched.
Yes, they do.
Second bird. Second bird?
I'm trying to think of like literature things, which makes me want to say like it's a lark or something.
Ah, along those lines, would you like a hint?
Sure.
The bird is often used as a symbol of innocence.
Dove?
Close, but no. So the fun fact about this bird is unmated males often sing all night long during spring, summer, particularly during full moons.
I have no idea.
The answer is To Kill a Mockingbird
Okay.
by Harper Lee. And the last bird.
Some sort of pit.
Close. A fun fact for this bird is a flock of these birds is called a charm.
It doesn't help.
A Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, which is a very good book. I highly recommend it. All right. Thank you for being an amazing sport and playing the little short game of Birdle. Everyone give a round of applause to Lindsey. So, Lindsey, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a historian of medicine. I live in Vienna right now, and I am currently working on investigating stuff about antimicrobial resistance and tuberculosis. And when I'm not doing that, I'm taking photos of birds rather than listening to them very well and using Merlin ID to help me with the bird songs. So I'm dependent on technology, it seems. And I am a very proud dog mom of a very cute Australian Shepherd.
What's the dog's name?
Ivan. He's Ivan, who is one of the Knights of the Round Table.
Very cool. Can you tell us about your writing and your publishing journey?
When people ask, like, how long have I been writing? I've been writing since I learned how to write. I've always been kind of an imaginative person. So as soon as I learned how words put together, I spelled them all wrong, but I was putting words together. And I think just storytelling in general has always been a part of who I was and how I was doing things. I was always thinking of new ideas. I really found quite a comfortable home in fan fiction at a young age, and I wrote a lot of fan fiction. I predated AO3, My sister would download like GeoCities Sailor Moon fan fiction, and she would print them out because this was like in the 90s, and she would like sneak them to me under the table, and that's how I would like read early fan fiction. And then so like as I got older, I was just very familiar with the community, and it teaches you a lot of things at a very young age, how to deal with feedback, because early fandom communities didn't necessarily have perfectly polite people all the time. I wouldn't even say they have it now, but I think there's a little bit more of an established rule base as far as like giving and taking reviews. And just the biggest thing is the practice of writing every single day. Like, even if you're not writing something fantastic, I promise I was writing terrible stories, awful grammar, awful punctuation. That's not really the point. The point is just the practice of doing the writing every single day. It just becomes a habit and a hobby. And once you like really get into the method of it, by the time I was 20, I was writing easily 50,000 words a month. That wasn't an issue. Like every month it was coming out. I think at one point on AO3, I had 2 million words of fan fiction that was just, and all of them in like consistent stories.
Oh my God, what was the fandom?
So many of them. By the time I hit AO3, it was really just like a spectrum of just fandom evolution. It would vary. There would be TV shows, there would be movies, there'd be animes that I would be into. It's still sad because there's a lot of like animes that I loved when I was a child, and I'll go back and be like, why hasn't anyone rediscovered this and written like better fan fiction than the 14-year-old? Like, come on, we can do this. But it was just, I was writing full novel-length fan fictions for a while before I eventually was like, you know what? I'm going to try writing a book. And the first book that I put out was in 2019. It was called On the Subject of Griffins, and that was through Riptide Publishing. It was an indie press. At that point, I moved to Canada for my master's degree and was just like, I'm too busy. I can't do anything. COVID happened. And that's during COVID is when I started getting the inspiration for the Tale of Two Crowns duology, which is currently out and, depending on when this podcast comes out, completed on the market. The first book, The Sunblessed Prince, came out in May 2025. And the sequel is The Moonblessed King, and that comes out in the UK April 16th, and in North America, April 28th. So it's soon-ish, or has already passed, depending on the date.
We will see who the producer and the editor is.
Yeah.
Wow. So how was the process different from indie publishing versus having a traditional published book?
I don't know if I really understood what was going on with indie publishing, to be honest. Like, I submitted the book, it got accepted, and then it was like, yay, here's a contract, fantastic. I read the contract, seemed decent, signed it, sent it out. The steps are very similar. Editor looks over it, cover gets decided upon, it goes up. One of the things for me that was like a major difference is, in my personal experience, there wasn't a lot of like, we're really going to reach out and try to get people to be aware that the book exists. No one knows it exists, and so no one's going to read it. And I think that's like a big difficulty with indie press sometimes. If you don't have any type of marketing sophistication, it is what it is. Where I feel like with TradPub, they do have a marketing component one way or the other, and that changes drastically depending on whether you're a top tier book that's going to be like the front line or a smaller publication from that press. But it still exists in some form. You're able to get into brick and mortar stores. You're able to, communicate with booksellers, which is a little bit different on the indie side. From a practical perspective, I got an agent before I went to TradPub, and so that was just an extra step involved. I didn't go directly to the publisher. And the agent process is similar, I guess, in the sense that you create a manuscript, you write a letter, you submit it out, and you follow a process. But I have to say, I adore my agent. Her name is Maddie Belton. She's absolutely phenomenal. She really helped guide me through this process a lot better. She's very editorial. And so when I gave her the manuscript and we signed and everything was confirmed, she did an edit through the manuscript before we went on submission to TradPub. And to me, I felt like that made it a much stronger manuscript and made it so that there was a better potential to getting that deal with a TradPub offer. I really like having Maddie in my corner, where if there's any question, any confusion, any uncertainty, I can just go to her and be like, what does this mean? I don't understand this term.
How long did it take you to get an agent after finishing your manuscript?
So I will preface this by saying before I did the indie pub with On the Subject of Griffins, I did look for an agent and I did not get one. So it wasn't my first time going on an agent hunt. And again, I'll preface again by just a reminder that I'd been writing for a very long time. And the only reason I'm doing all these prefaces is that the time I got my agent was relatively short, especially for people who are looking for querying advice. I think the actual time between submission and having that offer call was only about 3 months.
Wow.
And that's very, very short. And it's kind of a unicorn story, which is why I'm trying to say, like, look, that's not normal. It's not the average. It's not like, there's a lot of reasons why that was the case. And something else, which I had done with Maddie, which I had never really done before. And I'm not sure how much it influenced, but if it helps listeners, I did submit, there was some sort of writing competition that was happening where I was like, if you get first prize, one of the agents on the panel will contact you type thing. And so I did submit that. I think it was like 10 or 30 pounds to submit. It was a UK competition. And so I submitted to it. I did not win, but one of the people on the panel told me that Maddie Belton really enjoyed this. Can you submit to her afterwards? And I went back through my emails and was like, oh, I've already submitted to her. And so I wrote back and was like, I submitted something 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was ago. And at that point, then I got just the email circulation. She got back in touch and was like, oh, I'm so glad to know that you already submitted this and was in my inbox. So I'm not sure if it was relevant, if it had any impact. It was already in the inbox. You would have seen it anyway. Some people, it's difficult because there is a financial component to entering some of these competitions. Whether it had an impact or not, I can't say, but it was a part of that journey in a weird way.
That sounds really cool, the fact that you were able to submit and then also have someone on the panel pick you up specifically and be like, this is amazing. Can you please contact me? Stat.
Yeah, and it happened to work out where I'd already submitted it prior to getting that email, and so she already had it. I didn't win. Like, I think I was either runner-up or third. It was something like that, but it was like, so I think the reason why I'm mentioning is that even if you don't win, one of the reasons I chose to enter that particular competition was because it was a panel of agents. Like, in order to choose something, agents were definitely going to read it. And so, like, if you're concerned about ending up in a slush pile or something like that, you will definitely get read if you submit because they have to decide who's going to win the competition. However, there is the financial component, and that can be limiting to people who don't have the ability to spend the money. And so I'm not 100% sold on doing those types of competitions, but I did think it's relevant to mention.
No, that's very kind. Thank you so much. I didn't know, and now I do. Do you think having that indie press book as well helped you to get an agent as well?
I don't know. She's never mentioned it. She's never was like, you know what, I saw that you had that on your CV and I just knew this was going to work. Like, it was never like that. She really liked the manuscript that I submitted for the Tale of Two Crowns duology. And she was like, I love this. I love the tone of voice. I love how you're doing this. I don't think she's ever read, like, On the Subject of Griffins. I don't blame her. So, like, I don't think it matters. I think what really matters in the querying process is that you have a really solid pitch. Like, have a good pitch, have a good cover letter, and have your sample pages and, of course, your manuscript really solid. And something that I will say, I did not pay for a professional editor. I know a lot of people are like, you need to have a fully edited, perfect manuscript in order to submit to an agent. And I don't subscribe to that belief. And the reason for it is because, first off, it's going to go to an editor eventually. What you're trying to submit to the agent is, here's a really solid idea. I know how to write. I know how to, put a story together. The story is solid and it will work. The agent can then refine it. And then once it goes to the publisher, they're going to want to put their own editorial, okay, this is how we're going to package it and put it out. And so if you spend $5,000, whatever, on getting it edited, it's just going to get edited again. I think it's really important, like, do your read through. If you have a friend who's willing to read through it for you, fantastic. I had a friend who was willing to do that for me, but Again, I don't think it's a requirement to have a beta reader necessarily. I don't think it's a requirement to have an editor necessarily. Really solidly go through it, be hypercritical of yourself, and be aware that you need to be hypercritical of yourself. If you have people who are willing to help you, fantastic, but I don't think that it makes financial sense. I was a poor student. I could not afford to do a major editing process, and I don't think a lot of people can.
I imagine not at the moment, for sure.
No, and I think there's so much pressure and talk online that you need to financially invest so much in this, but if you don't have the money, what are you supposed to do? And I think it's very exclusionary to like say, well, you need to get a professional editor, it's never going to happen. And that's not true. I think you need to have a really solid manuscript and be willing to do the edits you need to do and really be willing to critique yourself. I think that's a better focus point.
How many iterations of this story do you think you went through before it got picked up?
I would say at least 3. And they weren't massive changes, but there were changes. So to be fair, and I think one person online mentioned they thought the books were probably written at the same time, and I will admit that, yes. The books were written together. I got to a certain point at the end of Sunblast where I was like, this is getting really long. I should probably cut the book at some point. And then once I realized that like it needed to end, I was like, the first part needs to get edited so that it's a proper standalone and it doesn't like feel like you're in a gaping end that didn't make any sense. But I wrote the duology together, and that was important to me because I was a student and I was like, I don't know if I submit this to somebody and it gets picked up, I don't know if I will have time to ever write the sequel because I am so busy. So I finished it before I submitted it, which is not usual. I think most people only write the first book and then hope that it sells, and that's probably the smarter option. But I was just like, I'm too busy. So I finished it to convince myself A, I was capable of finishing it, and B, that I knew what the story was and I could say this is exactly how it ends.
I think that's how a lot of marathon runners do it as well. They're like, I just want to prove it to myself that I can do it.
Yeah.
And then once you're done, you're like, I've run a marathon. I have this amazing achievement. Everyone clap.
Yeah. I do hope people clap at the end. So I finished it, and then I did a really solid edit for it, and then I asked a friend to read through it, and there weren't too many changes when my friend read it. She was lovely and very kind. I think she's sometimes a little too kind and not willing to be like, I think this needs changing. So like, get to a friend who will be critical. But it was more of like, I'm sending this to an agent. Does it make sense? Does it sound good? And she was like, good. And when I went on Query, before I got my agent, I had a full request from someone else. They read it, they sent it back, and the timing was actually hilarious. I took a screenshot of this, but I got the email from the agent I did not go with, who basically said, I really liked it, but the middle was really slow, and I'm not sure I feel like it's for me. I don't remember the exact verbiage. I thought it was quite a nice email, but I stopped and was like, okay, I need to work on the middle. And then literally an hour later, Maddie sends me an email and goes, I really liked it. Can you send me your full manuscript? And it was like, literally, I took a screenshot of the 2 emails on top of each other. And I had just decided, okay, well, I'm just going to stop submitting. I'm going to do an edit before I continue doing the agent quest. And so I was like, thank you so much for sending me this email. I just got this feedback from this other agent and was going to do an edit. Do you want me to send you the manuscript as it is, or do you want me to send it to you after I've done this edit? And she said, you know what, why don't you send it to me as it is, do the edit, and then send it to me when it's done, and we'll see. And so I was like, okay, fantastic. Deadline acquired. And I just worked for like a solid week and a half, just only working on that and putting my studies on hold for a little bit.
Just great advice.
Slight confession there. I was a PhD student, so I just was able to manage that. So I was like, I can read these papers later. I have something else I need to focus on.
This is more important.
Yeah. And in a weird way, I think that was actually a really good test because she was able to see my own editorial response of like, I've been given this feedback. This is how I'm going to address that feedback. And so I think it actually worked in my favor of having that experience. So I sent her the new revised manuscript, and again, it was perfect timing where she was like, oh, excellent. That is exactly the chapter that I just started. And I was like, yes, fantastic. And so I then was busy with schoolwork, went to a conference. I was living in Europe, but I went to a conference in the United States, touched down in Michigan and opened my phone to like figure out where my hotel was. And that's when I got the offer email in the airport. And I just was like crying in the airport. And to be fair, she didn't say I have an offer. She's like, can we have a phone call?
You know what that means.
I knew it
That's
meant.
code.
I was, like crying in the airport going, yes, please, I'm in the time zone. I'm never in the United States. Please don't take that against me. It was just, and then when I worked with her, she gave me a lot of edits. We changed a few things. We redid landscapes, tightened up scenes, elongated scenes. So I signed with her in May. We went on submission in August. And again, I put this purely as a testament to her as being just a fantastic agent. We got the first offer in September. So it was extremely fast.
Oh, yeah. That is amazing timing.
It was very, very fast. And because genuinely what it was I had been told it was going to take months, and I was like, fantastic, I have time to go back to work. And so I submitted it. I was like, great, all that stuff that I've been, putting off, I have to go back to like writing my dissertation. 2 to 3 weeks later, she was like, can we have a phone call? I was like, Maddie, you're killing me.
Like, not this again. Flashback.
It was, and I was like texting a friend, like, I think I got an offer. I don't know what to do. And so we got the call, and it was fantastic. And then specifically to the editing point of how many revisions there were over the next year, at least another 3 revisions with the main editor. And then you go into the copy edits and the proof edits beyond that. I think in total, there had to have been a minimum of 10 to 12, maybe 15 edits from the time I started writing it to like the final product of the book.
Would you say that's an average amount of editing required?
I can only speak to my experience. I think it was a similar, like once we got to like the published stage, I think it was a similar amount of edits as far as like the rounds of revisions that went through with the second book. I can't speak to other people's experiences, other publishers, other whatever. I think it's very variable. At least for me, I think between 3 to 6 edits, including all the dev and line and copy edits with the publisher, I think is pretty normal, but normal for me. It could be, there could be many, many rounds of edits with other people, and I'm just not sure. Do not write a book you do not like, because you will be reading that book so many times by the time you're done that you will hate the book. And there will be a moment that you hate the book. And you will still have to keep editing the book. And when it's finished and it's done and you see it, you will love it again. But there will be a moment because you have read this book more than any other book you have ever read in your life. So write the book you love because you will love it until you hate it. Do not hate it from the start or you will loathe it. And that is not a good feeling.
That is an absolutely amazing advice. Make sure you write something that you will enjoy for the longest time.
Yes. No, because Moonblessed King, I'm on the record as saying is my favorite of the duology. And I think it's because everything that happens in Sunblessed, in my opinion, is just very beautifully wrapped up in the sequel. And so like everything I was trying to say, I finally got to say in Moonblessed. And I love that book so very deeply. I genuinely just like, there are scenes in it that just speak to me on a personal level. And I hit a point where I was just like, I hate every single word in this book. Why did I write a book this long? Like, could I not have shaved off several hundred, like thousands of words, please? Like, why did I do this to myself? I still love it now, but there was definitely a moment in the editing process where I was like, I cannot read another sentence, and just be aware it happens. Like, you're going to read it a lot.
And it's just part of the process, isn't it? You go through peaks and troughs, and you will love it and you'll hate it and you'll love it again.
It really proved to me that I could never be an editor. I have a huge amount of respect for editors, but like the fact that they can just reread books like nobody's business, I complete respect for them. I could not do it.
On this podcast, we also like to talk not just about our huge successes, but also our failures. Do you have any failures that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I definitely tried to get an agent for a while before I submitted for On the Subject of Griffins, and I didn't get one. One thing that I will say, don't surround yourself with people who are going to tell you that you're never going to succeed. There is a lot of people who want to be realistic about the process, and they will come to you under the banner of, I care about you and I don't want to see your feelings hurt or your emotions crushed. And there is a certain level of realism that you need to accept that, first off, you personally have no control over the publishing journey. Somebody else makes that decision for you. Like, someone else will decide whether they want to publish your book. You can't force them to do that unless you self-publish yourself. But if you're surrounded by people who consistently tell you that it will never happen, it makes you feel like, all right, why am I doing this? Why am I wanting, like, you need to decide for yourself if you want to do it. And if you really want to do it, you need to put the work in yourself. And I think for me, at that point in my life, I was surrounded by people who were like, it's only nepotism. That's the only way you're ever going to get an agent. You're never going to get published and yada, yada, yada. And so when I went to submit to IndiePub, it was very much like, well, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to get an agent. So I'll just try here instead. And I was very happy to get published by IndiePub. But I also admit to feeling kind of sad because I wished it had a TradPub experience. I wished I could have done that. And it wasn't until I divested myself of those friends and people around me who were constantly putting me down that I was able to actually find that agent. It was many years of trying to submit, trying to get the confidence to submit, writing bad query letters, learning how to write a query letter before I was able to do it. And when I finally did do it, it did go very fast. But that's why I wanted to really preface the beginning of saying it took a while to get to that point. It wasn't just, I'm just going to start writing a book, wrote a book, got an agent, immediately sold. Like, there was a lot that led up to that moment.
No, thanks so much. This has been wonderful. I do have one last question, which you don't have to go into many details about, but we would like to talk a little dirty on this podcast, and the dirty word is money. You don't have to tell us the numbers if you're not comfortable, but if you can tell us about the process and what did you find out monetary wise with writing.
I think a really big thing that doesn't get talked about nearly as much as it should is that the writing or the payment cycle is not as convenient as one would expect. So, for instance, I'm going to use made up numbers because the math is easier.
That's fine.
First off, an advance is not fully paid to you in advance of your publishing journey. The name is a bit of a misnomer. It's the money that the publisher assumes that they will be able to recoup from the sales of your book. That does not mean that they're going to give it to you all at once. Usually it's broken up into payment structures, and so you get a small amount when you sign a book, a small amount when the book actually is submitted for the editing process, and then a small amount when the book is actually published, and then potentially a small amount a year later when the paperback comes out, if you have a hardcover paperback option. What that means is, like, so for instance, if somebody gives you $30,000 and they say, this is your advance, it's $30,000, you get $10,000 when you sign the contract. And then it could be a year before you actually submit the book and it's officially accepted. And the acceptance is entirely based on them getting a fully published or fully edited, like it's gone through all of the edited process and it's on its way to getting printed. That it's not you finish writing the book and giving it to the publisher. It's whenever they put it on their schedule for them to fully edit it and then they accept it as the book is done. So you could be the fastest writer in the world and get them out immediately and hand it to them. But if the publisher's like, no, we're going to edit that a year from now, you don't see any money until a year from now. And then it's whenever the book comes out. So let's say you sign the contract in January, $10,000. Book isn't edited until December. And so you go for an entire year, that's only $10,000. You get another $10,000 maybe right at the end of the year, maybe in January because it takes a month. So now you have that. Now you're waiting for publication day. That could be another 8 months later. So now it's the reason why I'm breaking it out like that is that it's not enough to live off of. And so somebody can say, here's $30,000 for your book. And that sounds fantastic because that's a full year's salary. And you absolutely could do that, depending on your financial circumstances, but it's possible. But then you find out that it's $30,000 for 4 years based off of when the money comes out. At which point it's like, nope, that's good vacation money, but I can't actually live off that yet. So money-wise, I think it's really important to keep that in mind of most people will not make enough money on their debut to be able to just live off it. If you can, fantastic. I'm so happy for you. You're the minority and you should take that to the bank. But it is a very long process for the advance, and you never see royalties until you sell enough for the advance. And most people don't buy out their advance, and that term earn out or buy out their advance means that you've sold enough copies to have completely paid back what the publisher has gotten. Most people don't do that. So getting royalties is very rare, and living off the advance is also very difficult. So just if you're entering this process in order to get money, it's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's difficult.
Have a plan B is what you're saying.
Have a really secure financial situation prior. It's really very challenging, and you never know when publisher is going to sign the check to actually give it to you. So even if they've hit the arbitrary deadline of when they should pay you, that doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Thank you so much. I think we've covered all of the things we want to talk about. Do you have anything that you'd like to tell the audience, either a fun story or a little tidbit about anything, or talk about your research?
I don't think anyone really wants to hear about my research.
You never know. People that follow us, nerds, would love it.
I will say that I do a lot of work right now on tuberculosis, and so it's been very amusing kind of lurking in John Green's shadow as like he's off really being the public-facing author in tuberculosis who's, you know, everyone knows him and he's a wonderful speaker and everything. And I was just like, this is literally my PhD, and I am also, you know, a writer emerging from the field. And it's like, am I allowed, I know he can't like own tuberculosis, but am I also allowed to be an author who speaks on tuberculosis?
Hey, I think we will make it happen. We will make it happy for you.
It's it is the most deadly infectious disease. More people die of tuberculosis than any other infectious disease in the world. It's completely treatable. It's completely preventable. We should do more, and we don't do enough. And so if people are interested, definitely just look up different tuberculosis facts and figures. John Green did write a really accessible book called Everything is Tuberculosis. So if you're curious about it, I guess I'm plugging his books now, which I should probably go back to mine. As far as like fun anecdotes, you know, one thing I feel like is going to be a controversial thought process, but I think it's important because I don't think enough people say it. For fan fiction authors who are constantly told that the only way to be a real writer is to actually publish a book, I feel as though, having grown up in the community, there is a lot of pressure on fan fiction authors to monotonize their hobby because you spend all this time writing nonsense, why don't you sell it and make money? There's a difference between being a fan fiction author and being a published writer. The amount of joy that comes from opening up the email that says AO3 and you've got like 20 emails and it's like, yes, I can, you know, respond to my adoring fans. It's very different. The community that you get writing fan fiction, being able to engage with your readers, being able to like have those happy moments. You don't get that with writing or being an author because reader spaces, reader reviews, they're really for readers because they're putting money into it. They're buying a product. And so when they're reviewing that product, it's not a conversation they're having with the author. It's a conversation with other readers so that other readers can be informed of their experience so they can either put money into it or not. And at that point, it's very difficult for an author to engage with those readers on a like, hey, did you really like the scene? Did you really enjoy this? Which you can do in the fandom community, but you can't do really in the author community. And so it's a very different social experience. There's a lot of pressure as well as soon as you do get the money involved, because if you're ever in a financial situation and you need money, now it's like, I have to write a really good book because if I don't get paid. And if I don't get paid, I'm going to die. where that's the thought process. Like, I have to pay my rent, I have to buy food, and if you can't do that on the pay side of it, now your hobby becomes the thing that keeps you alive, and the stress involved makes it so much more difficult. Where with fandom, I just want these characters to go on a silly fun time together. I want to know what,
The filler episode.
Yeah, I want to know what is Sailor Moon's favorite coffee shop, and I want to explore her having a bad coffee and what that experience is. I want to know what's going on in Interstellar, whether, what if he met his daughter earlier? You get to have so much fun playing in the universe, and the writing is so much more enriching and exciting, and the community, barring some very extreme individuals who make it not fun, the community and the friendships you can make in fandom are invaluable. I don't think there should be so much pressure on writers to become authors as a career profession as there is. If you love to write, write. You don't need to make it a career. Once it becomes a job, it becomes a job. And I love writing. I'm currently working on more things. I hope I can share them in the future. I enjoy doing it, but it's a different mental process, and it's a very different emotional journey because there's a different connection to it. And so for writers who really enjoy writing, that doesn't mean it's a good job. And knowing your own boundaries, knowing if you don't like someone telling you, I don't like this scene, change the scene, not a good place to be as an author. Like, if you want to write a book and enjoy that book, you don't need to monotonize it. You can just enjoy the process of writing. And I think that's really important for people to internalize more.
I think that's an excellent advice. I think also saying that people who write fan fiction are not real writers. Who are you to say that?
No,
Who are you?
I have read some of the most heart-wrenching fan fiction that have, changed my worldview. There are lines in fandoms that I have read that have just I've sat with them, and they've just better than literature, because just the way that fan fiction touches you on an emotional level, because you already have that relationship with those characters in that universe, whatever. Fan fiction is an art form unto itself, and you are absolutely a writer if you write fan fiction. That does not mean that you need to take your hobby and the thing that you love to do and enter it into a corporate hellscape where you're worried about money. And like we said earlier, the pay cycle of most advances mean that you're not even going to make enough money to live for the most part. Yes, we hear the big deals coming out with fan fiction authors who, have huge fandoms, and it's possible, but it's very unlikely. The amount of people who get that is very small. I'm not trying to be the naysayer that I said get out of your life, but it is important to be realistic about it. And if you're not somebody who can handle the stress or the pressure, or want to have somebody editing your work or yelling at you, or not yelling, but saying that you need to change something, or, dealing with cover artists, it is stressful. It can be stressful. I've made the choice to do it myself. It was worth it to me to do it, but it is also a full-time second job at this point, where I'm working 40 hours a week at my real job, quote unquote. And then I also, at the end of the day, spend a huge amount of my time doing writing and dealing with publishing stuff, which is very challenging on that front.
My evening job.
It's what it is. And
Yeah.
it's very difficult. And I really believe that if you're overwhelmed, if you're stressed, take it at your own pace. There's no age limit. If you publish a book when you're 80, fantastic. If you never publish a book, but you had so much fun writing, also fantastic. Love what you write. Be happy with writing itself. Don't worry about it too much as a publishing thing, and don't feel pressured to publish because you are a writer, whether you publish or not.
Excellent. Thank you so much for today. I hope you enjoyed it and had fun, even though the bird quiz was a lot more difficult than anticipated.
Because you saw I was a birder. God.
Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did. I don't know if you know panto in Britain.
No.
No, pantomimes is not its own thing. But thank you so much for being such a good sport about it.
Thank you.
And thank you, listeners. I hope you enjoyed and learned a couple of things. So the takeaways are: make sure that you keep that second job, and make sure you're enjoying writing. because that is the key. All right, Lindsey, do you have anything final words to say?
If you're interested in queer political fantasies, there's a completed duology that will be out in the end of April. And it's The Tale of Two Crowns. The first book is The Sunblast Prince. The second book is The Moonblast King. And they have gorgeous covers. If that matters to you.
No, they really do.
They're absolutely gorgeous.